Okay, so good evening, everybody, and welcome to this fairly brief webinar all about how to win more quotes and charge what you are worth. So this was the result of a poll that I recently did on the Trades and Builders Facebook group, and this was by far the most requested topic. So I hope that you find value in it. Just a little bit more about Evolve and Grow and who we are, and I'm just going to go to the next slide if it lets me. So my name is Alison Warner. I founded Evolve and Grow in 2010, primarily as a business coaching and consultancy firm. We are based in London in the UK, and after a few years of working with various different sectors, I realized that the construction and trade sector I could help the most, and it grew very rapidly. We had clients come on board and get results far, far quicker than some of the other sectors, such as financial advisors, web developers, IT companies, and the like. And I think this is in large due to the fact that construction and trades often have an overwhelming demand for their products and services. So often the business owner has learnt to do their trade and they're doing it really, really well. And so they then get recommended by customers. They then start employing people, and before they know it, lo and behold, they've got a business, but they're also working in the business themselves. And this can then lead to quite a lot of stress and anxiety and challenge. And so we launched Build and Grow, which is essentially programs that are specific to the construction and trade sectors. And we launched them in 2016. And we now have approximately 25 clients on board going through different programs. So these are specific programs generally aimed at businesses turning over 100 to $500,000 in turnover, sometimes more than that. And it's designed to help the business owner move off the tools and actually manage their own business. So just a little bit of a plug here. I have written a book called Build and Grow, How to Go from Tradesperson to Managing Director in the Construction and Trade Industries. It was launched last month, and we have a promotion running this week where you can buy the Kindle version this Thursday and Friday on Amazon for 99 pence. So do pop over there and get yourself a copy if this is of interest. Charlie Mullins, who founded Pimlico Plumbers, wrote the foreword, and there's lots of tips and strategies in there in how to move off the tools into a position where you're truly managing your own business. So that is enough of the plugs. I know that you are here to learn some strategies and tips on how to win more quotes and charge what you are worth. So it's an interesting one, this. Often I find that people feel that they need to go in cheap or cut down their price in order to win the work, and they believe that if they don't, then somebody else will come in and win the job. And that might well be the case. But price is an interesting thing. Price really is just an exchange. It's just a representation of how much somebody values your service. And as soon as you offer something exactly the same as everybody else, or put it a different way, don't differentiate to what other people are doing, then you are essentially in the commodity business. There's nothing that sets you apart, and so you then find yourself in a price war. If you try and build things in that are slightly different, that set you apart, excuse me, from your competition, then it can be very different, and people can naturally see that you present more value than your competitors, and therefore that allows you to charge more. So take a case in point here. Let's imagine that you're going out to buy a pair of shoes, and that pair of shoes is, say, £250. The question here is, do you value the £250 more than the shoes, or do you value the shoes more than the £250? So it might be that you value the shoes more, in which case you buy the shoes. However, if that price was to then be raised to 300 or 350 or 400, there'll come a point where suddenly actually you value the money, the amount of money, more than you do the shoes, and you opt to keep the money and not buy the shoes. So I'm sure you can see where I'm coming from. It's just an exchange. It's which do you value more than the other. So this whole concept of the perception of value and the exchange of money for a product or service, how can you increase it? And this is what I want to share with you, give you some practical tips, 3 things that you can go out and do tomorrow that will definitely increase the perception of value that you're offering to customers and enable you to charge what you're worth and also win more quotes. So there's 3 tips that I'm going to be sharing. The first is to be transparent. So more and more people are looking for a breakdown, we're finding, in quotes. They're looking for what are all of the different elements. They want to see where your profit is and how much you're charging for labour, how much you're charging for the materials. You could argue that we're in a market which is perhaps lacking in trust. Since the financial crisis, I think we can be argued to be less trustworthy. And so people are looking for that kind of transparency when making decisions. The second thing is to be accurate. And I'm going to take you through a process that makes sure that you're making enough money and you're aware of your profit before you start a job, because that's another thing that we often come across is not in place. And then the third thing is to position yourself as the expert. And I'll give you something that you can do quite easily, very, very simple, that instantly positions you as the expert in the marketplace. So the first one is, as I say, to be transparent. As I say, a lot of people are looking for this breakdown and quotes as to how much the work is actually going to cost. And this is just an example of what a quote might look like. And this has been proven and tested. So on the left-hand side there, we've got a standard quote saying electrical work and then the price beneath it. And on the right-hand side, you'll notice that the price here is at the top, and then underneath it is the breakdown. So you would then have all of the different elements of that job and how much they're all going to cost. This has been, just doing this alone, this has been proven to increase the conversion, so the number of people that actually decide to go ahead with the work, by 40%, just by doing this simple step. And it also has been proven that you'll be able to charge more by doing this simple step. So just being transparent and showing the price at the top here and the breakdown of all of the different elements of the work and how much they're going to cost, that increases the amount of quotes won by 40%. Quite astounding. And that's something that you can quite easily do tomorrow. Doesn't take a great deal of time. You're probably going through this process anyway, I would imagine, thinking of the different elements of job when putting together a quote. So that's the first tip. The second is to be accurate, and this involves really being aware of exactly how much the different elements of a job costs, so that you can calculate your gross profit. So your gross profit is the amount of money that you're left with after the materials and the labour, and in this case some commission, has been paid. So putting it simply, unless you make a sale, there wouldn't be a cost there. So if this business didn't sell anything, it wouldn't be spending anything on the labour line. This is if they're subcontractors, of course, and not salaried. And it wouldn't be spending anything on materials because it wouldn't need to buy any materials because it hasn't won any sales. So here you'll see that the pounds value here is quite straightforward, but on the right hand side we've got the percentage, and really numbers only become meaningful when they're expressed as a percentage of sales. And we can see here that the total revenue for this job is expected to be £174,621. Materials are at 43,000 approximately, the glazing element 12,000, the labour 55,500 roughly. There's some commission there to be paid to the salesperson of 1.5% of the revenue, giving us a total cost of sales of 113,000, just under 114. And you'll see that is 65%, which gives us a gross profit, as in The revenue minus the total cost of sales gives us a gross profit of £60,845, which is just under 35%. This is something I go into a lot more detail in the book about, in the first part of the book called Business Planning. It's really, really key that you're spending sufficient time pricing up jobs to make sure that there is sufficient gross profit to cover your overheads and give you some net profit. So forgive me if this is teaching you how to suck eggs, but often I find that it's worth explaining. Sales, as I say, minus cost of sales equals gross profit. So that's fairly self-explanatory, or GP. The other cost that is referred to is overhead. So these are all other costs. For example, rent, rates, telephone, motor vehicle expenses. These are the things that you need to pay irrespective of whether or not you make a sale. So not necessarily a fixed cost. It can go up and down, but they're things that, they're liabilities. They're things that you have to pay each month, regardless of whether or not you make the sale. So to work out your break even, and by that I mean the amount of sales that you need to take to cover those overheads without giving you any net profit, we do this simple calculation, which is overheads in pounds. So that's all of your rent, rates, utilities, all of those sorts of costs, divided by your gross profit percentage gives you your break-even sales. This is why it's so key to understand your gross profit percentage. And then you can obviously work out beyond that how much profit you're actually going to be left with. Really, really key. So for example, let's take a business who they have monthly overheads of £5,000. Let's imagine that their gross profit percentage is 45%. So £5,000 divided by 45% gives us a break-even sales of £11,111. So that business needs to take £11,111 per month net sales, that's net of VAT, before they've made any profit, because 5,000 is 45% of £11,111. So really, really key. So, and you can look at your gross profit percentage by looking at your most recent year-end accounts, just taking your gross profit divided by your sales, your annual net sales, to get your percentage, and then look at what your overheads are and do that calculation. So what about if it's not enough, if you're not making enough to give you that net profit? Well, you've really got two options. You can either charge more margin on a job, so charge more effectively, or you can look at reducing your overheads. This is why it's so important to be looking at those numbers every month, to making sure that they're under control, and ideally that you've got an actual financial forecast in place. This is another thing that I cover in the book. So the third tip that I'd have is to be the expert. And this was something I came across probably about 6 years ago. I thought it was really, really clever. It's very simple. Often the simple things are the most clever. And it was actually an electrician that was doing it. And what he did was, every time he went out to visit a customer, he'd get back in the van. He had everything ready to go. He'd do a calculation work out the quote, and either in the van or when he got back to the office, this is really, really key, by the way, it was making sure that it was sent out promptly within 24 hours of the visit. So within 24 hours of the visit, the customer would receive the quote, but along with the quote attached to the email would be a top tips booklet. So the email would read something like this: Dear Mrs. Smith, thank you very much for inviting us in to quote today. It was a pleasure to meet you. Please find attached our detailed quote for your perusal, along with our top tips booklet to choosing the right electrician. And then it would go something like, should you choose to use us or not, we hope that you find this booklet useful, as it includes lots of advice and top tips on what to do and what not to do when selecting an electrician to work in your home. So straight away, that positioned him as the expert. It built trust, it built credibility, and it increased his conversion. And you can imagine that if you were as a customer, it then doesn't become so much about price. It becomes more about trust and who's going to do the job on time, well, for the right price. But people will be prepared to pay more if they feel that you're more professional, that you'll do the job on time, to budget, and you're polite and friendly and a good representative and all of that good stuff. So the key here is the speed. This is, again, something that we come across frequently when doing an exercise called the customer journey, in that often there's bottlenecks in the business and quotes get stuck and don't go out within 24, maybe 48, even 72 hours of the visit taking place. And we live in a society where we want things now, and unfortunately it means that often, if this is happening in your business, the likelihood is you're missing out a lot on sales. You're leaving money on the table. So I'd really encourage you to get your systems and processes in place so that quotes can go out promptly, along with that top tips booklet, which, as I say, and straight away establishes you as the expert, increases credibility and trust, and comes across as genuinely helpful. So you're giving something of value without expecting anything in return. You're giving it regardless of whether or not that customer chooses to use you and your services. So in summary, let's just go through these 3 top tips. Be transparent and give a detailed quote. So remember to look at the what we said there, putting the quote with the price at the top, and then the detailed breakdown of all of the different elements. The second thing that we looked at is to know your numbers. So to go back and look at your numbers, either the recent year-end accounts, or to look at, if you're using accounting software, run a profit and loss account and do that calculation, work it out, how much is your gross profit percentage, but also how much are your monthly overheads. So it's monthly overheads divided by your gross profit percentage gives you your monthly break-even net sales, what you need to hit each month to cover those overheads. Anything else on top of that is profit. And then the third thing that we've just looked at there is the top tips booklet. So again, really simple. It's just a case of going away, thinking of all of the things that customers should be aware of when inviting a tradesperson into their home. So you could make it the seven top tips or the 10 top tips, something of that nature. Just a nice little professional PDF booklet, which is nicely branded, looks professional, which can then go out with all of the quotes with a really professional, nicely worded email. And those 3 things, I guarantee you, will enable you to win more quotes and charge what you're worth, and should help you move away. If you are one of those people who is knocking the price down continually to try and win the work, this should give you the confidence to not do that. So I just wanted to finish off by explaining the build system. This is something that we have created specifically for the construction and trade sector, and it's heavily featured in the book. It's pretty much the main part of the book, actually. So it's a 5-step process, and the webinar this evening was just giving you a flavour of the types of things that are included in this build system. So what we do with clients is really look to see, is your business in balance? If you think about it, any business is a mix of 4 different elements. So you've got the sales and marketing at the top, the customer experience at the bottom there, the team on the right-hand side, and the finance and systems on the left-hand side. And more often than not, in the trade sector, construction and trades, we find that sales and marketing are not the issue. There are several inquiries coming through on a daily basis, but as I alluded to there, they're getting stuck at some point. So either they're not getting quoted for within a reasonable time period, or more often than not, actually, the business owner is going out to quote, but they're coming back and then it gets stuck. So the quote doesn't go out promptly. or further down the line, the invoice doesn't go out promptly, and that impacts cash flow. And it's like what I call the sausage machine is them impacted. But sales and marketing don't tend to be the issue. It tends to be the finance and systems, and sometimes the team, either not enough or lack of capability or lack of engagement, one of those three things, which is impacting the ability on the business to make the most of all of the leads that they're getting through. So, which in turn can then affect, of course, the customer experience. So all of these things are need to be kept in balance. And actually, if you think about any business that's gone under, whether or not it's in the construction or trade sector, it will tend to fall down to one of these four areas. So this is what we do in a discovery session, which I'll come on to in a moment. We help the business owners score their business in these four areas and highlight which of them is out of balance and what steps do they need to take straight away to start bringing the business back into balance. And often as a result, actually, if the business isn't in balance, so is the business owner. They're not in balance too, so they can often be extremely stressed. So the build system stands for these 5 steps, starting with business planning. So this is where we put together an action plan that covers those 4 areas, together with a financial forecast, which is essentially highlighting the destination and the map to get there. So you've probably picked up from me tonight, a lot comes down to your figures and knowing your figures, so that before you even start on a job, you can make sure that it's worth your while. The second step is understanding your strengths. We use a profiling tool for this, an assessment which tells us where your strengths lie. And from that, we're then able to identify which 2 other people you need to have either employed in the business or supporting the business in some way. So more often than not, our clients are really, really good with the customer and going out and getting the sales, but their back end is not strong enough. So there's nobody there to look after the admin, and we show them how it's possible to bring in some support little by little through doing a robust financial forecast to start bringing the business back into balance and bringing that much required skill. The third step is implementing systems and processes. So this could be something like accounting software or a customer relationship management system, something that gives you better visibility of your figures, better visibility of projects, and enables you to be more efficient. The fourth step is love your customer. This is where we identify where the bottlenecks are and relieve them. And then the final step, develop and delegate. This is really about building a team, giving you the right tools and resources to hire the right people, and then develop the team. Really, really important. So those are the 5 steps of the build system. So as a thank you for anybody that's attended the webinar this evening, I'd like to offer you a complimentary discovery session. This is for 1 hour. Carries no obligation to work with us, but gives you an opportunity to find out more about our programs and for us to find out more about your business and to see if together there's a good fit. So if this is of interest to you, please go ahead and register your interest. Sorry, let me just go back a slide. At info@evolveandgrowcoaching.com. So if you'd like to book a discovery session for 1 hour, that's the email, info@evolveandgrowcoaching.com. And also, if you've got any questions, then please do drop me a line either on that email or in the Trades and Builders Facebook group. And I hope that's been of interest to you, and look forward to seeing you all soon.